Hello everybody, welcome to Skip Allen Paints and the YouTube channel of Skip Allen. This video is called Tips and Tricks with a really wet watercolor brush. We're going to talk about flow maps and paper and how they affect a really wet brush. And I will give you these brushes. The first one we're going to work with is called Skip's Real Water. And let me tell you where we are in this workspace first. This is the simple tool box. This is the command bar. I'm in Windows Arrange Palettes. I'm in the simple arrangement, but I'm actually in Skip's Watercolor, which is a variation of the simple arrangement. I have brought in my flow maps and my papers because that's what we're going to be using. I've got colors over here, and I have the advanced brush control showing. See, I can bring them out or not. We're going to work, like I said, with Skip's Real Water. It's at the default settings right now, which are kind of interesting. It's set to work with a flow map. And I have one of our flow maps selected, one of the default flow maps, which is called Organic Verticals. But notice the big difference here is delay diffusion is not checked. With delay diffusion checked, you can paint, and as long as the stylus is touching your tablet, the diffusion doesn't start. The minute you pick up your stylus, the diffusion starts. If you put the stylus back down, it will stop and then start again when you pick it up. So if you're working with a very slow computer, this allows you to get your paint stroke in before, it would not slow down the painting process. Pause diffusion will pause the diffusion until you uncheck pause diffusion. Okay, and pause diffusion can be found also up here in this little spot right there. Okay, but for my purposes, I'm going to use the delay diffusion unchecked. And the reason I have it that way is I want to try to experience the real traditional watercolor feel, and that would be the paint would start to run as you paint. All right, so I'm going to select a color. I'm getting this phthalo blue-green, and I'm just going to start painting. And you'll see that as I begin to paint, see the lines or the paint is already running. And I want to get some heavy paint in there and some light paint just to see what happens. All right, so we're going to let it flow. And what usually happens, if you have a lot of paint, it might break up and you get an actual run or drip. But notice that the paint is not going all the way to the bottom. You do have all these runs in here that are directed by the flow map. But I'm not getting runs all the way to the bottom, so to speak. So let's change to a different flow map. Let's change to one that is basically plain white. Nothing on the flow map whatsoever. And I'll do Control Z to get rid of that. And we'll paint again, basically the same way we did before, putting lots of paint up here. I'm going to try to put a little more paint. And then I'll put some lighter areas of paint. And I'll put some more here, really a lot, and let it go. Now look at that running. See, it's not being restricted by anything on the flow map, so it's going to run. Now this little breakup that you see here will become basically a drip. If I had not put as much paint on, it probably would not make it to the bottom, and you would have had a little kind of rounded point to it. But you get this kind of look with the runny brush. Now, I don't particularly like this line here, and you wouldn't get that line if you just lightly bring the paper all the way down, the paint all the way down to the bottom of the paper. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is that if you have a flow map with anything in it, it's going to slow the paint down. Okay, it's not going to let it keep flowing at the rate that it really would. If you have a plain white flow map, then you can get a lot more flows. How do you get a plain white flow map? Well, you just take a plain white document like this one. You would, let me open up the layer panel. You would need to be on the canvas layer, and you simply go Control A or Command A to select it, and then you go to your flow map area, your flow map control panel, click on the option button and capture flow map and name it blank flow map. And that's all you do to create a white flow map. It's real easy, and I'm finding it very handy. All right, so what about paper? If I change this brush to current paper, now the paper I've got selected is French watercolor paper. It's at its default settings of 100 to 150. I'm going to paint just like I did before, but now it's acting based on current paper. So I make a light and some dark color, and we'll put a lot of dark in there, and then do some light like we did before, and come back up here and put a lot of dark in there, and we'll let that flow. Now the first thing you'll notice is it's not flowing much beyond where I painted. As a matter of fact, it's hardly flowing at all beyond what I painted, because the texture of the paper makes a difference. Now, if this paper was fairly open, nearly white, it would flow more, but it still would hold it considerably compared to the flow map. Now, why is that important? Why is it good? Well, I'm going to create let's let this finish. Okay, there we go. And we've got nice runny color inside of here. I'm going to go Control Z. I'm going to select my circular or oval selection tool. And I'll start making a selection and then hold down my Shift key so that it is a circle. And I'll bring it over here to the center. Okay, now the watercolor will flow beyond that circle. Just to show you, we'll go back to flow map and we'll put the paint in. And I won't go the whole way, I'll just put in some right here, but you know, it's already flowing, and see, it's going right past that selection. So we know that the watercolor will go past the selection. I only am using the selection so you see the edge of where I paint to, and you'll also be able to tell then how far it goes beyond the edge. So we're going to go Control Z, and I'm going to switch back to current paper, and let's go ahead and we'll just again let this run on its own. Put some dark down here and let it go. Now, as you can see, it's going beyond that circle. Okay, it is definitely going beyond the selection. And that's not good, because when you're painting with watercolor, if you're working on dry paper, you kind of want to keep that edge where you painted. You don't always want it to just flow out of that space. So I'm not going to let this finish. I'm going to go on and go Control Z to get rid of it. And I'm going to change the paper. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the scale down to about 40. Then I'm going to increase the contrast to about 130, and I'm going to drop the brightness scale down to about 30, which makes it fairly dark. But let's look at the difference here. All right, so we put in some color, and I'm going to put in some dark color. It may not look as dark as it was, but it is dark. Okay, so there you go. Now, it is still flowing beyond the circle, but not nearly as much as it was because the paper is more dense. So it's holding the paint back. You're getting a nice drip there, but that's not what we want. So we go Control Z again, and let's go Control Y. This paper, I use a lot of custom papers, and I like them because I can get a better result than this. But let's take this down to 20. We'll take this up to 150. That's just more contrast. And let's see what happens. So we'll put the dark paint in, and we'll put some light paint in, and we'll put lots of dark in there, and let it go. Okay. Again, it's coming, it's not much better than before, but each time we make this paper stronger, it blocks the motion or movement of the paint considerably. So that's what I'm trying to teach in this thing, is that paper makes a huge difference in the look and in the flow of your image. Let's get rid of that. And I'm going to go to another paper. I'm going to go to one of my custom papers. Actually, I'm going to go to one of Tim's. I love his papers. I use them all the time. I'll go to about 40% on this one. I'll take this up to 150, and I'll take this down to 20. And again, we'll paint. Now, I'm also going to, this time I'm going to pause the diffusion because I want to put more color in. I'm going to start with this blue. And I'm going to pick up the Phthalo Blue red version, put some of that in. Then I come down to Tim's color set, which I like. There's a color in here that I think is really neat called Dead Leaf Green. I just love that sort of green-brown color that it is. I'll put that in. Now I want to get a yellower color. Let's go to this. It's yellow, cadmium yellow deep. And we'll put it over the top of all this. And we'll let go of the pause diffusion and see what happens. What you're going to see with this paper is you're going to see a little bit different kind of water runs, but look at how much closer it is to the circle. It's because the way this paper is made with it's like the lines going across that create the texture helps stop the paper. So if I were working with that really wet brush with this paper, I'm going to get it to stop right about the place that I put it. Now I'm going to go back to pause diffusion. I'm going to go Control Z, and I'll go ahead and put some more of this back in. And I'm going to change this back to flow map just to show you that with a flow map and not the paper selected, we're going to get that run again. And you're going to get a lot of blending with that color. Now with so much color, you're getting some breakup in here that you saw, like that lightness that you saw there. But look at the difference and how much wetter that looks. Okay, that's it. So what we've discovered is that paper makes a huge difference in the flow of your watercolor brush, especially if you have your flow set to current paper. Flow maps act similar to paper, but if you have one that's plain white, it's as if there is no flow there to stop your watercolor. So going with let's get rid of that, going with a color. Let's go back to flow map. We've got it. Now, if I take that, some darker color, let's see if we can find one. I'll tell you what, let's just go to black. All right, so we'll go to black. And if I take that color and I do light and bring it on down, just like that, real light in some places, bring a little darkness here and there. And let it go. Now, as long as I've got I've got paint all the way down here, that's going to help it flow all the way down. Nothing is going to stop it because it's got paint to flow into. This is that little breakup that you sometimes get, these little white lines, and they give you like little ribbon looks. But look at how that really flows. It's pretty cool. So if you want these brushes, they'll be available at my blog, Skip Allen Paints. Alrighty, talk to you later. Bye-bye.